Now, a glimpse into the vast global and criminal business of fake pharmaceutical drugs. Special correspondent Fred de Sam Lazaro reports on how some medical providers in Kenya are trying to ensure that patients receive genuine prescription drugs. It's part of his series, Agents for Change.
Catherine Karimi has been a nurse for 30 years, but for the last 9, she's also been a businesswoman. She owns a franchise in Nairobi of CFW clinics, owned by a US-based group called the Health Store Foundation.
So your business is very good, very busy then?
Yeah, I can't complain.
Much like a fast food chain, Health Store supplies Karimi and all franchisees with lab equipment, training, marketing, and standardized procedures. Perhaps most importantly, it also supplies clinics with genuine drugs containing what's on the original label.
They feel our drugs are original. That's why they come here.
23-year-old Ida Mokua came here after the drug she bought at a nearby pharmacy failed to cure a urinary tract infection.
They do not work at all.
So-called fake pharmaceuticals are a multi-billion-dollar problem around the world. They are made and packaged to look like real drugs, but contain a fraction of the active ingredients needed to be effective, sometimes containing nothing but chalk. Thomas Woods, a consultant to the World Bank, worked on this issue while serving in the George W. Bush administration.
These are major, global, international crime syndicates with far reach. These guys are killers. They're murdering people. And they're taking something that we all rely on, and they're callously and cynically putting out fake medicines.
A newly released report by the World Health Organization found that 1 in 10 medical products in developing countries is substandard or falsified. A Lancet medical journal study found that 20% of malaria drugs were fake. James O'War is with Kenya's Pharmacy and Poisons Board, which regulates drugs. He complains his agency is hampered by too few inspectors, only 16 for the entire country, and no legal muscle.
There's no law against a pill made out of chalk.
Not in our act.
It must be a real frustration.
Sure, it is. The other challenge of porous borders, people may smuggle things, including medicines, through places that are not manned by inspectors and such.
In response, many providers have developed their own methods to ensure quality.
January 2019.
Inspections are regularly conducted at CFW clinics, for example. Abraham Orare explained what he looks for.
When we are looking at the source, I was looking at the stock card and also cross-checking with the delivery sheet to confirm that this is actually what we've supplied.
Their supplier is a not-for-profit group called MEDS, Mission for Essential Drugs and Supplies. It was founded 30 years ago by faith-based groups, which are major healthcare providers in Kenya. MEDS now distributes 40% of all drugs in Kenya from its giant warehouse on the edge of Nairobi.
We have more than 1,300 items which pass through us.
Some of the most commonly prescribed are also most commonly counterfeited, says MEDS director Jane Masiga.
Antibiotics, painkillers, and then for medicines for chronic diseases, because they know that's a regular supply. Patients will continue taking those medicines.
Before they reach its Nairobi labs, MEDS begins its process by inspecting the factories where the drugs are made, in Kenya and also in India and China, two of the biggest sources of pharmaceuticals, both legitimate and counterfeit. Stephen Kigera is in charge of quality assurance for MEDS.
So we are able to actually pick out some of the non-conformities that are found in some of these factories.
MEDS randomly tests the drugs that it buys. Those that fail are destroyed to ensure that only genuine products leave this warehouse for client shelves. But Kigera says there are other complications. Many small storefront pharmacies buy from unauthorized distributors and are staffed by unqualified people dispensing drugs without any pharmacy training or a prescription.
Those pharmacies and chemists which are run by WACs or non-professionals, those are the chemists where there's a high likelihood that fake medicines can actually be sold.
Does the average patient have any awareness that this is a problem?
Chances are no, because assuming I'm from a poor neighborhood, if I see somebody standing behind the counter and wearing a white lab coat, then I assume that that person is a professional.
Pop open the capsule.
Technology may provide some answers, everything from barcoding to chemical markers to weed out fakes. Here at the Moy Hospital in Eldoret, a team from Purdue and Notre Dame universities is in the early testing phase of a chemically coated paper strip. It's cheap, just 50 cents a card, and easy to use by a clinic, for instance, to test its drug supply. Spread it on the card strip, dip in water, and check for color changes.
If there are any differences between the image and the control image, then you can say like it's suspicious.
Suspicious means it doesn't contain the active ingredient or has only a tiny fraction of it, as often happens, says Dr. Mercy Mina.
Counterfeiters are smart, right? If they know you're going to run a qualitative test to just test the presence of the active pharmaceutical ingredient, they will make sure that some of it is available for it to pass the test, right? So that we can just be able to get away with it.
The new test should be able to detect products with those smaller doses of active ingredient, which she says are a giant threat to public health, especially with antibiotics, which the bacteria learn to resist.
You're increasing superbugs. So we will run out of antibiotics because you are always being exposed to a lower quantity of the medication that you should. That has consequences.
Thomas Woods agrees.
I think it's a system failure if we are not able to equip partners in places like Africa with some of the same tools that we use to protect ourselves. Technology, field-based technology, stronger laboratories, rapid authentication devices, things that our Food and Drug Administration has at its disposal. Let's put them in the hands of African regulators so that we can save African lives.
Part of his job at the World Bank is to convince rich countries to step up such efforts. It's not just African lives at stake, he says, but the safety of the global supply of pharmaceutical drugs. For the PBS NewsHour, this is Fred DeSam-Lazaro in Eldoret, Kenya.
Fred's reporting is a partnership with the Undertold Stories Project at the University of St. Thomas in Minnesota.